Good evening, Pak Mateus and friends. So today I would like to present an article coming from Trent 2012 entitled The Discursive Positioning of Teachers, Native Speaking English Teachers and Educational Discourse in Hong Kong. My name is Mohamad Syihabuddin Faqih. Let's go to the first slide of our discussions today about the background of the study. As we know that in many Asian countries, an important strategy in the promotion of English language learning is the hiring of native English-speaking teachers, or we can say as NETs. As we know that Asian countries is not belong in inner circle of world Englishes, which consists of USA, UK, Canada, Australia, or New Zealand. In Hong Kong, the setting of the research, some local or non-native speaking English teachers are reported to view the NET scheme as threatening their professionalism, implying deficiencies in their teaching of the language. It is based on the result of previous research in the same field, and others research said that NETs have been seen as outspoken, critical of school traditions, and lacking in knowledge about student language and cultural background. Here's some collaboration between NETs and local teachers is a common theme in the educational discourse in Hong Kong. As we know, there are some studies about collaboration between NETs and local teachers, which offer mixed result, different result. As we can see from the left side, sometimes it gives a positive result of collaboration as stated by Carlos 2006, but sometimes it can be said as failed in integration as Forrester and Locke 2008 research. So the collaboration between NETs and local teachers in Hong Kong sometimes in a positive collaboration, but sometimes is failed in the integration process. So we go to our main framework of the discussion of this research. So as the main topic of the discussion, identity here is showed in the identity in discourse and identity in practice. So the researchers using two kind of framework to analyze his data. So he used Fairclough theory about modality and evaluations to search for the identity, and also by Holtz and Halls. And in the other hand, he looks also the identity in practice by using Wenger's theory in 1998. So we can say that this kind of research using multi-phase and multi-layered analysis of identity constructions. So what is actually identity? Identity is our understanding of who we are and who we think other people are. And identity in discourse is the identities are constructed within, not outside the discourse. And positioning is the assigning of a subject positions to oneself or to others, is a discursive process where people are located in conversation as observably as subjectively coherent participant in jointly produced storylines. So I can say here positioning is immanent, reproduced moment by moment in conversation, action, and carried to the time, not as the abstracting. So because this research is want to know how nets discursively positioning themselves in Hong Kong school, and to explore their perception about how they are positioned by local English teachers and school managers. So the concept of identity is very important here. So we talk about conflict, contestation, and discursive positioning. So it is important to understand the role that conflict and contestation might play in Net's construction of teacher identities. The conflict, we know about the conflict. Contestation, is a familiar word. We know from the word contestant. It's usually related to the political contestation, which means a battle. And then the potential for conflict and contestation is explored by using the theory of a discourse described by Jorgensen and Phillips, in which identities are discursively constructed through chains of equivalence, which contain nodal point or master signifier of identity, with which particular content comes to be equated. So these connections create an understanding of what the nodal point means in the text, which we call the chain of equivalence, because the nodal point is made equivalent to all the concepts in the chain. Sometimes there are also terms that the nodal point is defined as different from, which can then form a chain of difference. Nodal points can be thought of as floating signifiers, in the other word. Investigating the discursive construction of identity position. So the first framework using is the Fairclough framework. Includes a description of what individuals commit themselves to, which is a part of how one identifies oneself. Linguistically, these commitments are displayed through the modality and evaluation. Modality here is referred to what individuals commit themselves to in terms of the truth, obligation, and necessity. For example, here modality is like should be, must be, that's kind of modality. And the evaluation here is what is believed to be desirable or undesirable, and can be expressed in terms of what is considered good or bad, as well as useful and important. So here we can learn more about the evaluation in the example later in our slide. And then investigating the discursive construction of identity position. So this is evaluative orientations from one part of Buchholz and Holt's indexuality principle of identity formation. Indexuality refers to the semiotic links between linguistic form and social meaning, while relationality underlines the fact that identities become socially meaningful in relations to other available identity position and to the other actors. We are going to the identity in practice. So after we talk about identity in discourse, the other framework is identity in practice. As Wenger said that identity construction in terms of three modes of belonging: engagement, imaginations, and alignment. Through engagement in activities and interactions, individuals establish and maintain joint enterprise and negotiate meaning. Imagination involves extrapolating beyond our own experience, locating ourselves in the world, and recognizing our own experience as reflective or broader patterns, connections, and configurations, and coordinating an individual activities within broader structures and enterprises is the work of alignment. So the main research question in this article is how do nets construct their identities as teachers in Hong Kong school? To answer these research questions, so the methodology here, the participant and the setting. So the researchers collect people with different background, experience, and characteristic, for female and for male, employed as nets in the primary and secondary schools in Hong Kong. The data collection is coming from semi-structured interview, and then the interview transcript were reviewed multiple times, so salient times and tentative categories that appear to be of potential relevance to answer. And the last data analysis sought to identify cluster of signifiers, particular qualification experience, which were constructed around nodal points such as professional language teachers, and which were used by the participants to fill these nodal points with meaning. So here the result of the research here, so the positioning, about the positioning, this research talk about self-positioning, and then positioning by the institutions and positioning by other stakeholders. So based on the study, the main self-positioning, so the nets position themselves as a professional language teachers, and they also have a logic of difference, and they also positions themselves as the agent, and they also have a trait in terms of their relationship with their local or their co-worker. And in this positioning by the institution, they feel that they just position as another local teacher, and with the other stakeholder, they feel that they perceive illegitimate. Let's talk one by one. So the first positioning of the nets here is as the professional language teacher. It is clear because they all perceive themselves, positioned themselves as a professional language teachers. But here there are some difference or logic of the difference to differentiate between them and the other local teachers. From the transcript, we can see that the nets distinguish their self-positioning as professional language teachers from other identity position available to them in Hong Kong school, such as traditional teachers. So they made a differentiation between professional language teachers and, in this case, is a traditional teacher, as stated by Stephanie. And they also position themselves as the agent. As one of the transcript from Allen, we can see the underlined word here, routinely make decision and to lead the way. So here Allen indexed the subject position professional teacher through framing himself as an agent capable of exercising control over the teaching process. But nets here also position themselves in under the threat. So we can see the transcript here from Kiev. It's such an old-fashioned traditional approach in school, like I was given a pro forma, which was the way teachers were required to do things. It was just so degrading and so on. So we can take a look at the underlined word, that is, the Nets negatively evaluated situation that they believe threaten their self-positioning as professional language teachers. How the Nets is responding to their own perceiving positioning. So the Nets response to being positioned as not doing real teaching appeared to echo what Van Leeuwen 2008 term intentional goal-oriented action, designed to establish a position for themselves in their school and to resist what they believe to be the positions made available to them. Intentional goal-oriented action can be signaled through the use of purpose clause that used to, in order to, and so on. So one example here from Stephanie, I had to discover for myself to realize there was a problem. So this kind of the statement is indicate the response from the Stephanie about her position. And positioning and the intrapersonal domain. So positioning extends to the interpersonal domain as individuals position themselves privately in private discourse. So we can see the transcript from Jackie. I tell myself, be smiley. So here, I tell myself here indicates that they want to respond intrapersonally. So Nets respond to being positioned as, for example, not valid by using private internal discourse to position themselves in a variety of alternative subject positions, including patient, flexible, open, and friendly. And the next is responding, positioning, and the interpersonal domain. So here Nets suggests that interpersonal relationship with the other stakeholders, such as other English language teachers, play a crucial role in shaping their staff positioning, as well as their belief about how they were positioned by others. The Net's ability to establish close interpersonal relationship with school authorities appeared crucial to securing legitimation for their approaches to teaching and learning. And the last is positioning and the role of the policy. And some Nets believe that their positioning was mediated by official policies and the program. Some transcripts are given in the discussion of this section. I will skip into another slide. So here we go to the discussion of the research about the identity and mode of belonging. So as I said before, because this research is using multi-layered methodology, multi-layered framework. So this is the second framework from engagement, imaginations, and alignment from Wenger's. So the engagement here indicated the differentiate between real teacher and traditional teachers, and the imagination, and also the alignment here to distinguish the difference between real teachers and traditional teacher based on the data. So power, competency, and access to practice. Net's experience of identity formation in Hong Kong school can also be explored in terms of SUI, concept of legitimating access to practice. Net's legitimation of their access to practice in Hong Kong school was both relational and experiential. Net's capacity to position themselves as professional language teachers was shaped partly by the system of relation they developed at different level of social organization. For example, with the teachers, department heads, and also with the principal. Net's report strong close relations with principals and department heads as helpful in having their suggestion for change implemented and making things happen. As we know that here principals and department heads is having more power than them, so they perceive that they have a strong or close relation with them. So it is related with the power, competency, and access to practice of the nets. Antagonistic relation and identity constructions. This antagonism can be explored in terms of the theory of discourse described by Jorgensen and Phillips, which argues that meaning is constructed around the logic of difference and the logic of equivalent. These antagonistic relations might undermine the Hong Kong government emphasis on collaboration between local teachers and the nets. So they are antagonistic relations as the binary oppositions between the nets and the local teachers in Hong Kong. So what to solve, how to solve. So in this research, the writer also put the way to overcoming antagonism. So he over a concept of hybridity. So what is the concept? The fact that when a new situation, a new alliance formulates itself, it may demand that you should translate your principle, rethink them, extend them. A new alliance here within the context of Hong Kong school could begin with the establishment of a teaching and learning policy team comprising school managers, the nets, and local English teachers. This new alliance should also create opportunities for nets to develop alternative ways of seeing teaching and learning in Hong Kong, providing them with better understanding of the social, cultural, and political context in which teaching and learning take place. So there should be a strong commitment, there should be a strong a strong relationship, to build a strong relationship between the nets and local teachers to overcome this problem, according to the research. So I think this is my last slide of my presentations today. Thank you for listening. See you.